So it looks like everything is pretty much set up. Something that is missing here would be about the background. Let's go back to our QuickTime just for the reference. I think I use the same paper texture, and in addition to that, I have a little bit like kind of like a vignette. I just darkened the middle of it so we can see this clock better with this gradation. Those are not 3D layers. I'm going back to QuickTime here. Those always stay in the same place, as you can see. Even we are moving through the dimensional space, the background always stays the same. So this must be just a 2D layer. And whatever your camera position is, whatever your objects are, if in addition to that you just put a 2D layers behind your 3D objects, the 2D layers will always stay in the same place, unless of course you animate them separately. Let's bring in that paper. I'll just drop it in there. So I'm selecting the paper texture, Command /. So I drop it in here. Again, I don't see it. The reason is because we cannot see them in those custom and orthographic views. I have to change the view to the active camera. And right now everything looks kind of scrambled when I look at it. But let's just try to design in this view as best as we can at this point. I'm going to start to go into the camera setups soon because there is a camera layer introduced, and that's why we have all this nice perspective change in our animation there. But before I get into this camera move, I want to just finish all the setup here. So the paper, it's okay. I think we should rotate it at 90 degrees to match more the aspect ratio of our composition here. R for rotation, 90 degrees. That's good. Scale it up a little bit. S for scale. Scaling it up. That's good. Now let's take a look at the colors here. I could see that there's something going on. It's much darker, kind of gray. There are several ways to achieve that kind of look. Let's go with hue and saturation effect. I'm going to my effect panel here. I'll click on it and just type in hue. Hue saturation effect comes up right away. And since I have my layer selected, all I need to do is double click on the effect, and that will apply it to the selected layer. The next thing, I'm just going to decrease the saturation to almost gray. Let's see, lightness, make it darker. I'm going to take a look at the QuickTime for the reference again. Oh, it's even darker than that. So I'm going to make it even darker. And it feels like I actually made it a little bit bluish to counterbalance the color, to complement that warm tones with a little bit of a bluish tones. That's a good way to make some of your elements to pop out. You want probably like warm color scheme of your foreground elements, to be complemented by a little bit of cooler colors of the background, and they will stand out. You should play with the hue. Here, okay, yeah, that's kind of bluish. That looks kind of nice. Maybe bring it at saturation a little bit, make it darker. You can really start to see those digits. Actually, looks nice. Okay, so that's not too bad. The missing element is, if I go back and take a look at that QuickTime here, is that kind of like a black gradation. In order to do that, we need to create a solid layer, new solid, and probably it's going to be a black. I can make it just slightly bluish. Okay, click OK, and as a default, the solid color is always made to match the size of our composition, so this is okay. Now it covers our paper. What I'll do is I'm just going to use our ellipse tool, and notice that now, because I have a layer selected, now the shape tool is not going to produce a shape layer anymore. Now it changes the mode into the mask on our solid layer. So, it's kind of like an oval shape. I remember it from the QuickTime, it was kind of in the center, so I can just, create it around here. If you're creating it and it doesn't look good, like it doesn't have the right placement, while you're still creating it, you can change its position by just pressing down the space key. Now you can move it around. The key to that is that you have to do it while you still have your mouse pressed down before you let it go. Then you can reposition your shape. And then I'm trying to paste it somewhere in the center here. The next thing is to introduce that gradation. I'm going to open the mask properties here, change the feathering. This looks pretty good. Maybe play a little bit with the expansion. And I think that's more or less the way it looks on the QuickTime here. And when I introduce the camera motion and I really will see actually the location of the clock face, then we can still tweak it later. We could recompose this 2 layers. These are those 2D layers. But there are just 2 of them. I think I'm going to leave them in this composition because it's going to be easier if I need to tweak the color or something, if I have them still within the same composition here. So anyway, it does not look like it's a very complex main composition, even we have already a lot of elements. So I think by keeping it clean and being smart about how you structure everything, your main comp where all your animation is going to happen can be still pretty clean and easy to control, even if the actual setup is pretty complicated.